I tell you a true crime story and we drink. The following content may be disturbing to some. Discretion is advised. If you choose to enjoy one of our themed margaritas, please ensure that you are of legal drinking age and have fun but drink responsibly.
Oh, hey. Did you miss me? Whoops. Turns out that after not visiting family for 2 years since COVID started, my immune system is a little bit shot, and they left me with a Thanksgiving parting gift of a cold. And, I didn't really want my voice recorded like that for all of posterity. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't really need a top 10 crimes and a top 10 margaritas for 2021, because the truth is, I really picked the best mayhem for all of you. I wouldn't have chosen anything that wasn't the most exciting and interesting I could possibly find. So we're just going to go with the one episode about the booze. And, surprise YouTube fans, I'm back. I don't really know what the future of Margs and Mayhem looks like for next season and beyond, but I couldn't do a margarita recap without showing you these beautiful, beautiful drinks. For those listening or watching from home, yes, I did remake 10 margaritas from scratch. And yes, I made them half size, but that's still, you know what, let's not do the math. But yeah, I am going to drink them. Before we begin, I want to make sure to announce that I am doing the drawing for the holiday True Crime Margs and Mayhem prize packs on December 12th. That's Sunday. That's just a few days from now. Here are some of the books that are going to be going into the prize pack. And I tell you what, we're going to do 4 different drawings. The first is for people that are following each one of my social media platforms. So I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. If you just follow one of those accounts, you'll be entered to win a smaller prize pack. And then I'm going to do a grand prize, and that grand prize is going to be people that are following me on 4 different platforms. You have to follow me on all of them to be entered into the grand prize. So that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and you need to be subscribed to the YouTube. And I gotta say, there's like 4 people probably right now that are subscribed to all of them, and at least one of them is my mom. So you got a pretty good shot of winning if you just go click the like or subscribe or whatever the kids are doing these days. Okay, enough stalling. Let's start drinking. So some of you know, for Margs and Mayhem, I either adapt or create every recipe that I use for margarita. And I try to make them themed for the crime of the week or the mayhem of the week. And how far we've come. Before I started this podcast, which was less than a year ago, I had never made a margarita without margarita mix. And now here I am talking about flavor profiles and the benefits of a salt versus a sugar rim. Professional. No, I'm not a professional at all. Oh, and if you remember, I've made a random declaration that a margarita has to include 2 ingredients, which is tequila and lime juice. Beyond that, you can do whatever you want. And that has led to 2 incredibly disgusting drinks and 40 at least somewhat drinkable ones. The 10 that we're doing today are 10 that I'm particularly proud of. And for statistical purposes, 9 of them are on the rocks and 1 of them is frozen. Starting next season, I am going to be exploring frozen margaritas a little bit more. But you know what? Today's not about next season. It's about last season. So let's get started. Margarita number 10 is the Orange Crush. I decided to take everything I could think of that was flavored orange and throw it into one drink. We started with 2 parts orange soda, added to that 1 part orange juice, and 1 part triple sec, which, if you don't know by now, is an orange flavored liqueur. And then, of course, 1 part lime juice and 2 parts tequila. We shook, strained it over fresh ice because we are bougie people. And then, of course, I added this giant orange slice for some added bougie-ness. Okay, well, this episode isn't totally about the drink. I had to talk to you a little bit about the crime that is associated with that drink. So we're going to do a short TikTok-y version of each one of these crimes. And I thought of a game, which is that I have to finish the drink before I finish talking about the crime. This already seems like a bad idea. I'm just going to own that. But it's too late. I already said it. So I guess we have to do it. On November 15th, 2006, 41-year-old Abraham Shakespeare became one of the luckiest men in Florida, if not the whole country, when he won just over $11 million in a lottery jackpot. Self-reminder to drink this a little bit at a time so that I don't have to chug it at the end. Okay. Abraham kept his money after a lawsuit was filed by a friend claiming that they were the rightful owner of the lottery ticket, but he would not be able to survive Dee Dee Moore. Dee Dee was a known scammer who'd been known for embezzling, writing some bad checks, and at one point even faking her own kidnapping. Nice. So a little less than 2 years after Abraham had won all of his millions, he came upon Dee Dee. And here's the thing. He really needed a financial advisor. He'd already given away a ton of his money to family and friends. Dee Dee she was not a financial advisor, but she played one on... She didn't play one anywhere, but Abraham believed that she was a financial advisor. So in the meantime, with advising him on his lottery winnings, she also managed to separate him from all of his family and his friends, including his 2 children. And then less than 6 months after she met him, she shot him twice, killed him, and buried him under a cement slab next to her house. Nice lady. After trying to throw her own son under the bus by claiming that he was the one that murdered Abraham, she was charged and convicted of murder. She remains in prison to this day. Before we move on, and yeah, I finished it. But before we move on, some life advice, friends. If you ever find yourself winning the lottery, I must suggest that the first thing you do before you tell anyone, before you do anything, is you hire a real financial advisor. Take it from me. For margarita number 9, we're heading to the island. The Hawaiian Islands, to be exact. I gotta say, this margarita probably has the most ingredients of any margarita that I've made for this channel, and it's worth it. So we'll start with 3 parts tequila, and then we're gonna mix it with 1 part of a lot of delicious things. Okay, so you want mango nectar, 1 part mango nectar, 1 part pineapple nectar, 1 part orange juice, and 1 part lime juice. Shaken, not stirred, and over fresh ice. And here we go. I don't know how I managed this, but I definitely picked the 2 crimes that have haunted me the most this entire year for this episode based on the drinks alone. And here's the first one. So here we go. Aristocrat and party girl Talia Massey, who had been married off as a child bride at age 16, was living on Waikiki Island with her Navy husband, who was stationed there. After a party at the Alawai Inn, which is a Waikiki nightclub, well, Talia and her husband had a very public fight, and then he went home. It's possible then, at this point, that Talia was kidnapped, abducted, and assaulted by a group of Hawaiian local men. The Ala Moana boys, as they came to be known, were arrested and charged, but after a deadlocked jury, they were set free. Rather than leave well enough alone, Talia's mother and her husband arranged for a group of her husband's friends to kidnap and assault the Ala Moana boys. One of the young men, Joseph Kahahawai, was shot twice, and then his body was thrown over a cliff. The 4 white friends of Talia's husband were arrested and convicted of manslaughter. The territorial governor, however, reduced their 10-year sentences to 1 hour, which they served in his office. Well, I don't think that I'm going to have too much trouble finishing this one. After an investigation, it turned out that there was no way the Ala Moana boys had abducted and assaulted Talia. Shocking. Okay, for drink number 8, we're taking an innocent children's drink and turning into something more sinful. Sounds about on brand for me. So for this margarita, we're going to take 2 parts tequila, 2 parts Sprite, 1 part grenadine, 1 part simple syrup, and 1 part lime juice. We're going to shake it all together and strain it over fresh ice in a salt-rimmed glass. I suppose you could use a sugar-rimmed glass if you'd want. Be more childlike. Sure. I think I forgot to mention that both drinks 10 and 9 also had a salt-rimmed glass. I pretty much always do a salt-rimmed glass. I should also say that This drink might be equally good or even a little bit better if you eliminate the simple syrup and do double the grenadine. Up to you. This crime is super well known. Take an axe, 40 whacks, all that jazz. A full-grown adult, Lizzie Borden, in her late 20s, may or may not have been an axe murderer, but she was certainly a brat. She called her stepmother mother, but probably like this, mother. She was super mad that her penny-pinching but fairly wealthy dad was not spoiling her to her liking. Remember, she was in her late 20s and still living at home. There were some instances of food poisoning that might not have been food poisoning, if you know what I mean. And on August 3rd, 1892, Lizzie tried to buy cyanide from a local pharmacist who would not sell it to her without a doctor's orders. And the next day, first, her stepmother ended up bludgeoned to death in an upstairs bedroom by 17 blows to the head, most of them done after she was already dead. And then, a little while later, her father ended up dead on the couch downstairs with several splitting injuries, including a blow by an axe that split his eyeball. Oh, my reminder to drink. Then, of course, one of those trials of the century. Not sure how many of those you can possibly have in one century, but that one ended in an acquittal for Lizzie Borden, and she lived a free woman until the ripe old age of 67. But if you want, today you can visit the Borden house and even stay overnight. It's a bed and breakfast. I think I'll pass. Okay, y'all, we have to pause because I promise you, I made these half the size that I normally do, and they are filling the entire glass. And we are only on number 6. All right, here we go. Speaking of number 6, when I found a Vermont mayhem that I wanted to cover, I knew I had to do a maple syrup margarita, but how to make it actually drinkable, that was the challenge. But we've done it. I really just replaced the simple syrup in a traditional margarita with maple syrup, and it makes a delicious breakfasty themed drink. So for this drink, you're going to want to mix 2 parts tequila with 2 parts orange juice, 1 part lime juice, and 1 part maple syrup. Make sure you mix it super, super well when you shake it up, because maple syrup and the syrup for the next drink, they're thicker than simple syrup. So you got to shake it really, really, really well to make sure that it incorporates. But it's delicious. Then as normal, strain it over fresh ice and salt or sugar rimmed glass, but y'all know I'm partial to the salts. The mayhem in this episode was downright supernatural. Starting with a string of disappearances, 5 of them, over the course of just a few years in the area known as the Bennington Triangle, which is an area around Glastonbury Mountain, a very mysterious mountain in Vermont, and then combine it with Bigfoot sightings, strange deaths, UFO-type lights, and some indigenous folks, the Abenaki, who will literally never travel on that mountain. Well, you got some people talking about what it might be. Honestly, I think it's probably some strange wind. I don't really believe in all that supernatural stuff, but I do believe in margaritas. So, now to finish this drink. Oh my gosh. That wasn't margarita number 6. That was margarita number 7. Now we're on margarita number 6. Seriously though, they're delicious. I'm taking my time. I got a big old cup of water. We're golden. Margarita number 6 is Texas themed all the way. So for this margarita, which is prickly pear flavored, I again just replace the simple syrup with prickly pear syrup. So you'll do 2 parts tequila, 1 part triple sec, 1 part lime juice, and 1 part or a little bit less of the prickly pear syrup, because it's even thicker than real maple syrup, if you can imagine it. Shake it super well, strain it over fresh ice, and look at that pretty pink spicy drink. Just kidding. It's definitely not spicy at all. Oh, Bart Whitaker was a regular high school troublemaker who, with his friends, decided that it would be fun to bypass the security alarms of his school and to break in by going in through a skylight. It's actually pretty good, but on the way out, they stole some computers, which was not the brightest idea. So he ended up with 4 years of deferred adjudication and some probation, but that was really the only crimes he had before. He decided to enroll at Baylor University after graduation. That's in Waco. And after spending 2 years at Baylor, he decided he would transfer to Sam Houston State University. Only he didn't actually transfer. Instead, he spent 2 years planning to murder his entire family for the inheritance and, any insurance money. Then he faked a graduation, got his parents to take him to Papado's for a graduation celebratory dinner, and then when they arrived home, he had formulated a plan with his friends who went in and pretended to rob the place and also shot his mother, his father, and his younger brother. His mother and his younger brother were both killed. His father survived. He was pretty quickly named as a suspect, and then when they found those two friends who'd actually done the crime, they turned over pretty quick on old Bart. Bart, after some, running from the law, Mexico, all that, he ends up getting caught, tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. But thanks to the incredibly selfless and loving actions of his dad, maybe too selfless, he was actually spared the death penalty 45 minutes before his execution was to be carried out. And he's been remanded and is serving a life sentence in jail where he does things like writes poetry. I don't know. He is in solitary confinement, so I guess there's that. Drink up. The Hurricane Margarita was probably my first and only foray into a different type of alcohol. A traditional hurricane has rum, so we included rum in this recipe. It is a beautiful drink. It tastes delicious. Honestly, I don't know why it's number 5. It probably should be higher on the list. And I got a cheat sheet because this one's pretty hard to remember. So we're going to start with 2 parts tequila. To that, we'll add 1 part rum. Yes, we're mixing our alcohol, but it is delicious. We'll add to that 1 part lime juice, 1 part orange juice, 1 part pineapple juice, and to make this beautiful color and beautiful deliciousness, that's not really a thing, we add 2 parts grenadine. Fun fact, grenadine is actually pomegranate juice. Bet you didn't know that one. You know what? This one might actually have the most ingredients of any margarita that we've done so far, but it's totally worth it. Y'all know I love New Orleans. I love visiting New Orleans. I love eating my way around the French Quarter, drinking my way around the French Quarter. Hurricanes for everyone. But this crime haunts me to this day. This is the crime that I think about the most of any of the ones I covered this season on Margs and Mayhem. And yeah, it's pretty great. I don't know if it's because of what happened after the murder or what, but it's the one. So if you don't remember, this is the story of Zach Bowen and Addie Hall. Zach and Addie were both bartenders in the French Quarter, and their love story sort of began as Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2006. And even though it was a terrible disaster, for them it was some sort of weird post-apocalyptic, idyllic love story, no power, cooking for friends, weird thing. But as they started to clean up from Hurricane Katrina and things started to return to normal, their relationship definitely turned pretty toxic. And Zach's PTSD reared its ugly head and he murdered Addie in their apartment. He then dismembered her body in an attempt to get rid of it. He did weird things with it. I'm not going to go there today. And he journaled in Addie's leftover journal pages and spray painted some messages of regret and pain and remorse all over the apartment walls. And then a few days later, he drank himself into a near stupor. He climbed to the top of a hotel and threw himself onto the roof of a parking garage below, completing suicide. So, yeah, it's a pretty rough one. But I mean, this drink is just, it's so good. Do yourself a favor and make it. Speaking of doing yourself a favor, if you need something to survive holidays with your family, I have put all of the drink recipes for my top 10 list in the order that I made them, 10 to 1, in the description box. It's a pretty lengthy description box for this week's episode, but definitely pick up some of the ingredients and make them yourself. Fun little after drink number 6 intermission story. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you may notice that my hair is looking a little bit longer than it did before. So I used to dye my hair fun colors. I did it all through COVID, my COVID crazy, foray or whatever. But I decided to actually bleach my hair one last time before I started Mars and Mayhem, because I was going to do regular plain colors for the YouTube channel, and I actually fried my hair. So I had to do a pretty short haircut, which you may have noticed in the early episodes of Mars and Mayhem, but we're growing out, and I've given up on the idea of plain colors, so I'm sorry. You're welcome. Whatever. It made the list, everybody. The classic margarita. Now, I know your uncle's brother's neighbor's best friend also has a fantastic margarita recipe. Seems like everybody does, but this one is mine. So, for my classic margarita, I put in 2 parts tequila, 2 parts lime juice, 1 part triple sec, and 2 parts simple syrup. It's perfect. When I first talked about this crime, which was episode 1, and man, how far we've come. The episodes are like double the length of that first episode. Yeah. Well, in that first episode, I talked about this crime being the one that defined a genre. But I think I really need to add a little bit of nuance here. If I've learned nothing else from this year, I've learned that people have been obsessed with true crime and murders and mayhem and all of that forever. People have been contaminating crime scenes and taking little pieces of stuff for memorabilia from crime scenes for a very, very long time. Centuries. So Truman Capote may have defined the book genre of true crime, but definitely not the human obsession. 1959, old Dick Hickok and Perry Smith were fresh out of the joint and in need of cash. So they drove to southwest Kansas Holcomb, Kansas to be specific, and murdered, in cold blood, the Clutter family for what amounted to almost nothing in terms of cash and valuables. Then they drove to Florida, maybe murdering another family on the way. It's never been confirmed. And then hopped and skipped and jumped around, maybe went to Mexico, all that. And then were caught, due in large part to some pretty remarkable forensics for the day. Despite the fact that at least one of them may have had mental illness and another one a traumatic brain injury, they were both convicted and sentenced to death. They were executed not long after in quick succession. Now, what's fact and what's Capote's fiction? I'll leave that for you to figure out. I'm just gonna drink. In honor of that yellow sponge who lives under the sea, the number 3 spot is a pineapple margarita. We're gonna have 2 parts tequila, 2 parts pineapple juice, and mix that with 1 part each of lime juice, simple syrup, and triple sec. SpongeBob SquarePants, here we go. I'm starting to notice a trend with my margaritas. Give me the orange and give me the pineapple flavors all day long. Delicious. I'm certainly glad for something lighter when it comes to the mayhem. In 2001, Burger King formed a partnership with Nickelodeon and specifically SpongeBob SquarePants to promote his various appearances on the silver screen. And in 2004, they did this in a pretty big way. They put inflatables on their roofs across the country of Burger Kings, of, the square sponge. And those inflatables were valued at anywhere between $500 and $1,500. They were 9 feet tall, and they weighed like 50 pounds. Okay, who needs to know that? Well, they started to disappear. Whether it was really excited SpongeBob fans, or frat boys, or people who thought they could make some money on eBay, who knows? They started to get stolen off the roofs of these Burger Kings. Dozens of them were stolen in 2004 and 2005. Burger King even tried to get it to stop by offering their version of a king's ransom. Yeah, they offered a year's worth of free Whoppers, but I really don't think anyone took them up on the offer. Instead, these definitely appeared on eBay, and other of these inflatables appeared in garages and apartments. So, yeah, luckily, I mean, the movie season was over, so they took some of them down, and, well, it really wasn't that big of a deal anyway, so drink up. And for this beautiful and sort of simple drink, we're going to have 2 parts tequila, 2 parts blood orange soda. I use it sparkling because I like a little bubbly margarita. And to that, we'll add 1 part triple sec, 1 part lime juice, and 1 part simple syrup. This crime was a doozy. I think it was episode 3, actually. And I said it was our first family annihilator of the season. I think it was actually our only family annihilator. John List. Remember that guy? Woof. He probably had obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and he definitely couldn't hold a job. And so instead of admitting that to his family, he instead decided to murder them. Lovely. He killed his wife, his elderly mother, and his 3 children by shooting them in the back of the head. And then, if you remember, he stored them in a very cold ballroom in his fancy big mansion, and then he totally disappeared for nearly 20 years. Moved somewhere else, got another identity, started another life, married someone else, until he happened to be tracked down because of a pretty good episode of America's Most Wanted and an excellent forensic artist. He died in prison where he belonged at the age of 82. Bottoms up. And last, but certainly not least, is the best margarita of the season, and our only frozen one. So, to a blender, I added as many frozen cherries as you want. I literally blended an entire bag, as well as 1 part cherry juice. Combine that with 2 parts tequila, 1 part lime juice, and 1 part triple sec. Blender up, and you have, I'd argue that might be the prettiest margarita, and it is certainly the most delicious margarita of the 2021 Margs and Mayhem season. Cheers. Listen, the mayhem for this margarita happens to be from my hometown, but that's not why I picked it. I picked it for the drink. In an effort to force the people of Lawrence, Kansas into a pro-slavery position in the tense pre-Civil War era known as Bleeding Kansas, or maybe as retaliation to what that wild man John Brown did to some pro-slavery settlers in Pottawatomie Creek, well, Bill Quantrill brought his men to Lawrence, Kansas. Let's be clear, they weren't men. Most of them were under the age of 20, and a lot of them were younger than that. And also, let's remember that Bill Quantrill was also a little bit salty after being fired as a teacher outside of Lawrence, Kansas. Regardless, on the morning of August 21st, 1863, he and his raiders rode into Lawrence, Kansas, and murdered 182 men, which was approximately 32% of the men who lived in Lawrence, Kansas, and 10% of the total population. It is the 7th largest massacre in U.S. history. He also burned a bunch of buildings down and caused some general mayhem. He and his guys had also done a fair amount of, well, drinking themselves. Thanks Thanks for hanging out with me this season. I'm super thankful for all of you who listen, watch, subscribe, like, comment, and all of the other things. Remember, it's not too late to enter for those awesome prize packs. I'll see you next year, and remember, there are always alternatives to murder, assault, kidnapping, supernatural, and sponge nappings.